Hi, everyone. My name is Julia Kuzer, and I am a third-year medical student at Geisinger Commonwealth School of Medicine. Welcome to the AIAMC Medical Student Podcast entitled Adversity in Medicine. Today, we are meeting with one of my classmates and colleagues, Julia Ma, who is also a third-year medical student at Geisinger Commonwealth School of Medicine. So really excited to talk with you today, Julia.
I think we're technically fourth years now.
Oh yeah, that's true. Our school has a weird phasing thing. Part of me feels like we're not fourth years until the current fourth years match though.
That's true.
But I know, yeah, we're kind of like our school does a weird phasing transition thing. So we're on the final phase, but it's kind of weird. But anyways, so how are you today, Julia?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Just buried in my house attempting to study for STEP.
Same.
So tell me, I probably already know some stuff by virtue of, being your classmate, but tell me a little bit about yourself and what piqued your interest in medicine.
What piqued my interest in medicine? Oh, goodness. I think it goes a long way back, probably to when I was like 10 or 12, and I was watching it's a Korean drama that kind of propelled K-dramas into the Western world, essentially. It's called Jewel in the Palace, or by its Korean name, Da Chang Jin. Um, and it talks about this woman physician in long time ago Korea, back in like, I don't know, like 500 AD maybe. Um, Basically talks about how she becomes like the king's physician, which is unheard of for a woman of that time, and her struggles and how she combines her talents in both cooking and in medicine to heal people. So I think that's probably where a lot of my interest in medicine started. The the whole virtues and morals that she holds to medicine, that also applies to food, that you do not put into anyone things that harm them. So like when you cook food for someone, you don't cook food that harms them. Same with medicine. You do not put anything into a human body that harms them. But also the ethics that she holds herself to as she becomes a woman physician in that time, where she's constantly like looked down on because she's a woman. Like women at that time, they were only supposed to be nurses. And just through her achievements that she's able to, she doesn't really prove anything to like the people around her. She just does her own thing. I think that's what really inspired me, that sometimes you just have to like do your own thing and do your best. And that made her into a historical figure. So she is a like an actual person that's recorded in Korean history. Although whether her story is actually like that, which you can be like, oh, maybe they embellish some things, but she
Right?
is recorded. Um,
Oh, sorry. What's the TV show called again?
it's called Jewel in the Palace. That's its English name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
And
interesting.
so that kind of started that. And, I was doing my usual high school, middle school things. Didn't really know what was going to happen, and then went through college. And I think in college, it's probably like, of college, like I studied the usual like biology, was getting ready for med school. Um, and then I guess the unfathomable happened. A week before I was supposed to graduate from college, my dad suddenly died. And that, like, obviously that changed a lot of things. So I didn't get into med school. I was applying during that time, but obviously I didn't, continue on. Um, we had to, so I had to like find a job to take care of the family. Because my mom at that time, my dad was the breadwinner. So my mom at that time was just doing like a part-time job. My sister was still in college, and it was very important to us, like to us as a family and to us as a culture, that she finished her college. So we didn't want her to like come out either. So I came out and found a job by friends, just kind of like linked me up, and found a job as a lab tech, and that's where I was working for the next 7 years. Um, and there was a point in time where I like had totally thought like, oh, maybe I'd never go back into medicine again. Um, yeah, but then somehow it happened that the place where I was working with was doing like a collaboration with Geisinger, where so Geisinger has like a master's of biological science program, and it's essentially just like kind of like a post-bac program, but they give you a master's. So it sounds a little bit more legitimate. And they happened to be doing that collaboration with my workplace. And so I took advantage of it. So I ended up like working, and then I was taking the classes in the evening with my other like 6 classmates. We were the second class, I think. So this is like they had first started it, and then I joined the second year, I believe, second or third year. I can't really remember. Um, and then I reapplied for med school, and that's how I got here.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, well, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I'm so sorry, it's just the, you know, the death of a parent and, just, I wish I could say something to, it's like you empathize, but it's like I've never experienced something like that. So it's just thank you for sharing. And um yeah,
It's
yeah.
okay. um, it's all right because like you don't really have to empathize. Like obviously, it's not an experience that everyone has, and it's not an experience I'd wish upon anyone. Um,
Yeah.
and I think sometimes with like, especially when you're like suffering and when you're grieving, it's very easy to lash out and want people to understand or say like, "Oh, you don't understand." But I feel like maybe at that point, like I didn't need people understood. I just needed people to be there. So, so it's okay if you don't understand.
um but yeah, since so what was it, what specifically, when you were a lab tech for those 7 years, you said, um what specifically, like what kind of lab, what kind of research, like, I guess tell me a little bit more about that and how that I guess kind of developed your interest. And like I know you said you applied to med school previously, but I guess just in those 7 years, what was um a day in the life of Julia Ma like?
Oh, well, it's pretty mundane. So our lab researched particularly viruses. We are part of the research branch of the Hepatitis B Foundation.
Mhm.
So obviously we focused on hepatitis B research, and so we were like the research branch is called Blumberg Institute. So Blumberg is the guy who is technically founded, or I guess took the first picture of hepatitis B with another person, but he's the one that's his name on there. Um, so our lab did research on hepatitis B, but we also did research on dengue virus and yellow fever virus. And later on in 2020, we did a little bit of COVID-19 as well. So a lot of
Oh, wow.
viruses. We're technically what you would call a basic research lab in the sense that we do a lot of drug screening. So we use a lot of like drug libraries. There's like libraries that we have from Merck, and we also have one of the largest natural compound libraries. So this uses like natural substances that you would find in nature. And they're technically pretty complex molecules. And then we screen these libraries basically for drugs that might be effective against the different viruses that we have.
Yeah, wow, wow. I feel like I admittedly have never done any research in relation to viruses. If you're gonna like, do research on hepatitis B, dengue, did you have to do is that like a BSL, like or did you have to wear like hazmat suits
Oh
or
no.
anything?
Yeah, most we were BSL too. So
Okay.
no, we were not BSL. Like it wasn't like Ebola where you needed to wear all those and people had to face each other because you could potentially like poke each other with needles in the back or something. No, the most we
Okay.
were was BSL too. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that still sounds really cool. I always wondered what it would be like to do BSL level 4. Just that sounds kind of terrifying. I'm very clumsy. I feel like I would be like, I don't know, carrying like a super contagious specimen and then like slip and then it I just feel like you have to have a degree of coordination that I do not possess. But
Thankfully, we have carts and things like that. You just stick things in centrifuges and
okay,
they do the work.
that is fair. Um so what was it like the master's program? Like I guess that was kind of that exposure to Geisinger. So what was it like doing the master's program and how did that make you decide, you know what, I am gonna apply and go to med school at Geisinger?
I think because I've been 7 years out, so I wasn't really sure whether I had the academic rigor. Um, Also, being depressed changes your mind a little bit.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really sure if I had the mental aptitude for it. To this day, I'm like, I'm not really sure either. But at that point, I was like, oh, I should probably just try this out to see whether can go through that academic rigor from med school and beyond. So it was like one of the chances I gave myself to see if I was ready to reapply to med school. Also, I think it in terms of like grades and things like that, because my college grades were technically 7 years out, I needed something a little bit more updated. So in terms of like advising, that was also kind of what was recommended to me as well. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think I did enjoy, at least for like my first experience with Geisinger, it was a good experience, I think. Um, the professors are really good. I enjoyed all of them. I think Geisinger tried to do its best because we were technically, they had like a program where we were, but they also had a main program in the Scranton campus. And obviously, the Scranton campus had a lot more resources and staff available to them than where we were down in Doylestown at that time. So I think they tried their best to make us not so left out. But of course, the distance is a little difficult. And when you have staff that's like down here versus staff that's up here, it's going to be a little different as well. But I think they tried their best.
And I know you mentioned like, you know, med school's tough. I'm sure that doesn't that statement is the understatement of the year. Um but I just think like there are phases where it's like it really tests your um resilience and your motivation. I have to say, like during preclinical, it was just like, trying to like bury my nose in a book and trying to learn everything without the context. Like there were times where it just got exhausting. And I feel like I had like a little bit more renewed interest with clinicals once you see like the context, you actually see what it's like to help people. Um but studying for step is tough. It's kind of isolating. I think the amount of studying you have to do to get a good score kind of like alienates you from peers, from fun things. Um, so, it's tough. And I think you kind of go through phases where like your interest is more renewed and then phases where it's like not quite
Hold
as
on a second.
no problem at all.
Someone was calling me.
Oh, sorry. No
Go
problem. No
ahead.
problem. Um, so what was I? Yeah, so I guess it's just like, I don't know. How have you felt? Like, do you ever feel like sometimes your energy, your excitement for medicine kind of like waxes and wanes? Um,
I think so. I mean, it was really, I guess when like I first got into med school and you go through the white coat ceremony, it was kind of like, wow, this is a big deal. I made it this far kind of thing. So
Mhm.
learning to celebrate in the little mini milestones is definitely something I've been learning to do. Similar to you, it was really difficult during preclinical years. And that's probably why I enjoyed so much the PPCC session, where we actually had like a simulated patient. Even if it was simulated, I really enjoyed that part more than the books. But actually, frankly, it was a little harder for me when I went into clinical. I think it's because number one, I haven't had, sorry if you hear my dog,
Oh,
um, because I haven't, like, to that point, I haven't really been in a hospital setting other than volunteering, which is, you're kind of removed from making medical decisions, going through the epic system and things like that. You're just doing your own thing. Whereas like once you're a med student, you're stepping into the clinical space, you're kind of part of that team. You have to work through the hierarchy. You have to work through like, oh, this is the attending, these are the residents, this is the pharmacy, these are the nurses. There's a lot more communication and social obstacles that you have to work through and figure out. And I'm always amazed like at the people who came from families with no doctors or physicians or anyone in the healthcare field. And that's the same thing with me. Like I was the first one in my family to go to med school or do anything medicine related. So having not that background and not really knowing what was going on and having to relearn that was a little difficult for me. But I think the other difficult thing was that realizing that now you are playing a part in someone's health. And that
mhm.
responsibility felt really, really heavy for me. I think partially because, and it kind of goes back to like my dad dying. So to this day, we don't really know why it happened. We know he just died of a heart attack, because that's what it says on the death certificate. But he didn't have like any of the risk factors or anything. But he did go see his primary doctor like a week before, and basically my dad told the primary doctor that he just had vertigo and he just needed medication for vertigo. And my primary doctor took it at his word instead of like asking more questions of like what was happening. And I feel like if he had done that, like asked more questions instead of just taking the patient at his word, he would have found out that my dad was having episodic vomiting and cold sweats for like the past 6 months. Um, and so when I think of it that, like that kind of responsibility is very heavy. Um, and it's almost like it was like choking me up a bit because it was very difficult to go into the clinical space. You have at most 10 minutes with a patient, even though they're marked out for 20 minutes of their appointment time, you're really just there for like 10 minutes. And you have to like get through all these things and be like able to figure out, oh, what is actually going on? Like just all the things, all the angles you have to think about and all the things you have to rule out before being like, oh, this is like something benign and it's okay to let you go, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
No, that is tough. I mean, kind of going back, I feel like I take the um responsibility of being a future physician pretty seriously, but I think like, and maybe it's an experience like that kind of makes you appreciate the gravity of the decisions you're making. So while I feel like I take the idea of being a physician very seriously, I guess like that hasn't hit me with the intensity like, oh, something I could do could really make could make a difference on someone's lifespan. I guess like part of me just feels like maybe just taking it, you know, part of me is kind of hoping, well, when it comes time to make the decisions that can influence someone's lifespan, I'll be far enough along in training that I'll be confident in my ability to make those decisions. But it is tough, people like even if they don't sometimes they don't really have like the prototypical standard symptoms, um or maybe they're just too stoic for their own good, or
So true.
even to this day my mom is like, Julia, like if I'm back home, she's like, I want to go to the doctor with you because you like minimize, like I could be projectile vomiting and we'll just be like, my stomach mildly hurts.
No.
Um, and it's like you can have all the experience in the world, but there are gonna be circumstances where, you know, um people can have bad outcomes. Um, and it's tough, you want to take that very seriously, but I think there's a place to um, appreciate that people can have tough outcomes and it's not your fault. And you don't have to take on the burden of feeling like that's your fault.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame the primary doctor for,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to blame him. I think it's just something that I want to learn from because, like,
Mhm.
obviously, it, yeah, I think it's something just for me to learn from. I think he did his best, and what was the information given to him, and my dad was probably just very persistent that it was vertigo, which happens. Um, but I think also just keeping an open mind and not like, yes, the patient can tell you one thing, but also do your own assessment, and not locking down on diagnosis, which is why I think our school, at least, they train us pretty well to always have a very big and wide differential. Even if it's like the most nonsensical thing out there, you should keep it on your differential. Um,
Yeah. Um, yeah. Well, no, it's good. You always have to keep in mind, like, there can be unusual presentations and just being aware of all the possibilities. But I think it's also good to give yourself grace. Um, like the last couple of days, I got a crochet kit that has step-by-step instructions. Um, and I attempted to make a sea turtle. And
oh.
it turned out so bad. But I was just laughing hysterically because it just like I sent a picture to my parents. I was like, "Oh, look at this." And they thought it was cat's my cat like was really sick and like
Oh.
threw up something that was like they were like, "Why is it like five different colors? Is Orlando my cat? Is Orlando okay?" And I was like, "This is the finished product. I just crocheted a sea turtle." Like, okay. But I think you kind of just have to give yourself grace. And I know it sounds cheesy to be like, don't take yourself too seriously. And there are times where you have to take, what you're doing very seriously. But I think, I don't know, you kind of just have to laugh when there is an opportunity to laugh too. Um,
Yeah, I get where you're going. I think it's good to not be hard on yourselves because some things eventually, you know, they do have to happen. And
yeah,
I mean, to
it's
this
tough.
day, maybe I don't, sometimes I like wonder why my dad had to die, but then sometimes I'm like, oh, I think about like all the things I've learned from them. And it's like, yeah, there are some things that I wouldn't understand unless I went through it. So I take it more as like, I'm trying to understand it more as a good thing than as a bad thing that happened. Um, but obviously, I wouldn't want to wish it on anyone. So I do my best, and then that's what you have to, you just have to think that I did my best, and that's the best you could do.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like, you want to like, it's just like you want to like, obviously you want to work hard and do your best. But again, like kind of just being like, I did my best and I crocheted a sea turtle that my parents
Yeah.
thought was cat vomit. Um, and medicine obviously is entirely different, but it's just like I think you do have to appreciate even in circumstances where you're making a difference in people's life and health outcomes. You do have to give yourself grace and appreciate that you did your best. So well, thank you so much, Julia, for sharing your story. Um, yeah, I will send you a picture.
I look
It's
forward to it.
interesting.
We need to like normalize art that doesn't look pretty.
I know everyone's like always like a crochet master or
I
something.
know.
Well, I'll send you a picture. You'll laugh. It's pretty funny. But thank you so much. This is Julia Ma, classmate, third year medical student, third, fourth question mark, at Geisinger Commonwealth School of Medicine. Thank you so much for talking today, Julia. This is the completion of the episode Adversity in Medicine, and thank you again so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you.
All righty, sounds great. Well, I think we're finished up now. So thank you so much.